college applications. So my name is Victor Su, and I was a graduate of Lynbrook. I just graduated in June. So I was accepted to Princeton REA, so that's restricted early action, and I'm going to attend it in the fall. I applied under mathematics, but now I'm going to plan on studying what's called operations research and financial engineering. So if you have any questions throughout, just hold on to them till the end, and I'll make sure to answer all of those. So I have
one question.
Yeah.
So do we need to take notes, or are you going to share your PPT with us?
Take a note. We all seminar do not share PPT to audience.
Yeah, I guess sure, just take some notes. But if you have any questions, I can provide my email to you later on, and you can just just email me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. So I have a strong background in competitive mathematics, namely not just the AMCs and a couple of contests throughout. And basically from that, I formed a couple of really broad-based opinions on like college admissions and success in general that I'm sort of here to share with you. So this is going to be the outline. So number one, disclaimer. Right? There's no basic formula for getting into college. There's never any like formula out there. Like I know people who are my close friends who are like international gold medalists in like international biology Olympiad. They didn't get into all the schools they wanted. There's no formula for getting into college. That being said, we're going to go through a couple of points. So first, I'm going to try to explain the college admissions mindset. Right? So not just thinking about it from sort of like the the small scale of each of us individually, but from the larger scale of a college in general. So I'm going to go over the overview of general strategies. I'm going to examine a few case studies, mostly my own. I'm going to discuss my background and experience in math contests. I'm going to end with some closing remarks and general advice. So if you notice in this slide, the only word that was repeated was the word general. So that's about the best I can do to the extent of my abilities, is that I can offer a general piece of advice. You can't have anything that's terribly specific in regards to college admissions. Okay, so college applications. So this is going to be it's a critical time between the summer of your junior year. I mean, if you're doing it right, you want to start during the summer of your junior year, and you go all the way through the winter break of your senior year. So starting off, high school, if you think of it, is sort of like a springboard for you going forward in college. So by the time you get to this critical time, you really don't want to be trying to add a bunch of like new awards and new accolades towards your application. At this time, a lot of it, you want it to be set. You want it to be set on sort of who you think you are, how your essay is going to turn out, where you want to go. In that sense, you want to sort of have a lot of this figured out. And in this sense, at the end, it's just the presentation of what you did in high school. Right? So if you think of it, at this stage, you should already be able to have essentially like your raw material, right? And this part is just for you to refine your own story into whatever beautiful gemstone that you make of it. So in that sense, a lot of you have, I'm sure, like preconceptions about college admissions, right? In terms of perhaps, when it comes to like GPAs, extracurriculars, what standardized tests you're thinking about taking. But in the grand scheme of things, let's try to think about it from the point of view of, let's say, like these large Ivy League colleges, like UCs, whatever. So if you have any of you ever reviewed applications from the pool, like if any of you have ever done any hirings or like selections? Any parents here? Well, for my experiences, I've had to do selections for my schools like ASB, for Link Group, and I would just like to say from that process, all of these types of any sort of applications where you have to go through and select prospective applicants is essentially inherently flawed, right? There's a lot of subjectivity going on there. Like your entire life's work is basically put into a few pages of paper, but to the eyes of a college admissions officer, you're going to get if you're lucky, 5 minutes? Maybe if you're really good, they might give you 15 when they discuss it. But in essence, there's a lot of intangible luck involved. Based on their own personal experiences, they may have certain inclinations towards your story, they may have certain feelings towards another. And that's the best you can make of it. So going into this process, you have to realize that a lot of this is inherently very flawed. So a good way to combat this is sort of, instead of emphasizing maybe like all your scores and all your achievements, you want to go for like definite character traits, right? They have to be able to make a connection with you personally, and they have to be able to make, they want to be able to feel out like your definite character traits. And not just providing definite character traits, obviously you want to have tangible evidence, right? I mean, I feel like that for a lot of the people in this area is very easy for us to provide tangible evidence, right? Like awards, trophies, whatever. Like we're used to piling up our own like award cabinet or trophies, but you want to have these trophies to sort of tell your story, to be able to project your own character traits that you have, and be able to help bridge the gap between you and an admissions officer in terms of how they connect to you and how they can relate to you. So that's basically the college admissions sort of mindset that you want to go towards. So a little more. So when I teach my SAT course, I basically go off and talk about how College Board is a business, right? And from there, like, I won't discuss too much in detail, but there's a lot of things that you can exploit in that sense. Colleges are a little different. They're institutions of higher learning, but at the bottom grand scheme of things, colleges are, in some sense, their own businesses, right? I mean, they have like their political requirements, right? I mean, you've all heard of like quotas, legacy admits. They all have to sort of advance their own prestige, right? That's their bottom line. They collect athletes in some sense, right? They always want to have the best athletes, right? They always want to have like these great like these geniuses you've never even heard of. They're probably like born in the test tube, like these gold medalists. These are sort of like for them to, these are spots that they've already allocated out there, sort of for you to have, in that sense, for them to have almost like a trophy collection. So when they're looking through this, when they're looking through the application process, they're looking for people to sort of add on to their prestige, to sort of be able to find people that in their future, when they've graduated and matriculated, sort of advance the honor of their school. So it's not just about like, what the school is going to do for you, but you also have to think about, what you can bring to the school. So with that being said, I'll just bring up a statistic just to show you about a bit of the quotas. I'm not sure if you guys read a sort of controversial article in the New York Times about 6 months ago regarding a little bit of the quotas for Asian Americans. So I think that applies to basically everyone in this room. So about in like the 1920s, there was a huge influx, or there was a lot of suspected quotas, essentially of Jewish Americans, right? And no one ever like confirmed that, but it was pretty clear. And now I think in modern day, Asians are pretty much getting the same treatment. So if you look at this graph, there's one school for which Asian Americans between 1990 and 2011, their enrollment has been steadily going up, and that's Caltech, because Caltech uses essentially what's called like a blind applicant system, where they really look at you pretty much independently of race. They pretty much look at like your numbers, your application. They don't really consider too much into the factors of like quotas, especially since it's such a small school. But if you look at the other schools, if Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Brown, Columbia, Cornell, Dartmouth, Penn, that's the Ivy League, and this looks like a flat line. And I can tell you for a fact that between 1990 and 2011, the Asian American population definitely, that increase rate was not zero. So something is going on here. And that's a pretty clear quota that they've been setting right around 20%. So what this means is sort of like, I mean, everyone's getting better. There's more applicants every year. That's why our admission rate numbers, or that percentage for how often people are admitted, that's getting lower. The number of people that they accept each year into their freshman class isn't any like higher, but the number of applicants is steadily increasing, and the number of Asian American applicants who are qualified is steadily increasing, but the number of Asian American applicants who are getting accepted is definitely not increasing. So that's something that, in addition to that, you have to think about within this college admissions mindset. That doesn't really apply to, may not immediately resonate to you as you start out in this process. So I'm basically here just presenting this sort of to display that college isn't, these admissions processes aren't like, they're not meant to be like terribly equitable, right? Colleges are a business, they have their bottom line, and this is one of the harsh realities that we have to deal with as we move forward. So there's a couple of strategies that I think are rather general. I mean, you could probably get all 5 of these from any Fortune 50s that you want, but like in general, let's go through a couple of these. So first of all, I think the most important strategy really is to be yourself, right? And when I say that, I don't mean like you shouldn't like lie. Obviously, you don't want to lie on your college application because that's pretty obvious and likely you'll get caught. When I say be yourself is it's hard enough for someone else's story to be able to like make it through, and it's even harder for you to be able to tell someone else's story better than they do. That doesn't make any sense. You really want to be able to do yourself, be yourself. Don't try to terribly, you may have derivatives from other people, but you definitely don't want to have everything emulated off someone else, regardless of how great of a role model they are. Because your story is your own, and that's actually probably your best asset, your own uniqueness. So the next part is a bit trickier. It's basically called understanding yourself. So when I was in my college application process starting out in summer, I was basically like really confused. I had pretty much no idea what to do because I'm sort of like a math guy. I'm used to like writing down numbers and proofs, and I had no idea how to like crystallize everything I've done into just basically like a couple essays, a few hundred words. That doesn't make clear-cut sense to me. So at that point, I just spent about 6 or 7 hours. I just created this. So this is a graphic organizer that I guess I'd pass around later if you want to see. I basically put up together a brainstorm of everything that I did and sort of like why I did the things and why and what connections I had between them. So in that sense, I sort of got a sense of not just like all the things that I've done, which is a lot, but also like why I did them. So that I think is a lot more important in helping you find your own character traits and helping you mold your own identity. So the third thing that you want to do is presenting yourself, because that's literally what college applications are. You're presenting yourself in the most crystallized, most compelling way that you possibly can. Okay? So, I mean, for a lot of, maybe for some schools more than others, creativity in your essays is a must, right? I mean, you hear tons of dried out essays about, let's say, how many like maybe AP classes you've taken, how many years you've spent like playing a sport, how much you love these things. It's important that you have something fresh out of the box, like creativity. Like both of my friends who are going to Stanford, from two of my close friends who are going to Stanford, both basically wrote essays. One of them was about sushi, and another one was about Waldo. So these things basically didn't really have any tangential application or connection to what they've been doing throughout high school. But what it did was it showed definite character traits that they would really wish to convey. So the fourth strategy I would say is just to be realistic. I find that too many people who maybe don't end up reaching where they want at the end of the process sort of take college admissions too much as a reflection of their own self-worth rather than being accepting of everything that they've done and being proud of what they've accomplished. So note, I really want to emphasize this because you really only get 5 minutes from a panel of like a bunch of like these old bards just sitting around in a circle looking at your application, right? That's not any sort of a great evaluation of what you've done, who you are, or anything. So in being realistic, be realistic about aiming for what goals you want, but also as you come out of that, you want to be able to not be able to see that as like a final judgment on your character, your worth, but look beyond that. And whatever happens, in general, of everyone that I've talked to, almost everyone, of my friends who are going to college, they're all really happy within a few months of where they are, regardless. And in general, pretty much everyone goes to a place that they fit well in or that they deserve. And the final thing is just sort of going off along that track is to keep the big picture in mind, right? So just like high school is a springboard for college, maybe college could be a springboard for grad school or for your first job. So the college that you end up going to for your undergraduate education isn't necessarily like your life. Like you're working towards a lot of things throughout high school, but that doesn't mean that there's a big difference between working on certain things or pursuing interests just for college and life, and you shouldn't get those two mixed up. So I'd like to go back to understanding yourself. So that second strategy I feel is really personal to me because I'll share a story. So for basically throughout all of middle school, I really wanted to basically attend what's called the Mathematical Olympiad Summer Program. And it's one of the it's the most prestigious mathematical program in America. And it's where they train the so-called mathletes to basically compete for the International Mathematical Olympiad. So throughout middle school, that was basically my goal all throughout. And it was my goal pretty much for high school too. And let me tell you, I actually never reached that goal, but I'm still okay with that. But in my sophomore year, what happened was I pretty much worked. I didn't really go towards any other extracurricular activities. I might have shut myself off from a couple of my friends a little more. It was becoming more of like an obsession towards a goal. And in the end, the cutoff that year for my age group was a 28, and I was the only one in the nation who scored a 27. That sucks. That really sucks. And I was really mad for a while. And I actually quit math for about like 5 months because I was just really lost and sort of broken about what that whole process meant to me. And as I sort of came out of that, going into junior year, I sort of realized like I had to understand what my motivations behind doing something like math contests were. Like, was it more towards getting accolades, getting awards, getting praise from peers, whatever, recognition? Or was it actually towards my own enjoyment of the subject? And at that point, I felt like I concluded that it was too much of me just trying to do it for pride, out of ego, rather than actually, really having a passion for the subject. So I refocused myself, and I explored other forms of mathematics. I continued to do competition mathematics, but I didn't really narrow myself into just going towards this lofty goal that I set a long time ago. So that was sort of understanding myself, realizing at that point there was more to me that I wanted than just to be like a great math. So I don't know if any of you attended Frank's lecture on college admissions. Did any of you attend that? Frank Lane? Okay, yeah. So basically I'm going to offer one case study, and Frank is one of my very good friends, so I'm sure you guys have heard the advertisement of how his GPA in like sophomore was like 3.3, which at Lynbrook is considered pretty darn low, but Frank managed to scrape everything together, and now he's going to go to the University of Chicago in the fall. So what we can learn from the story of Frank, I feel, isn't just that, oh, if you slack off a little bit at the beginning and if you do a little better towards the end, you can still get into a good college. No. I think it's more of, in talking to him, he really understood, he didn't use the same 5 strategies that I did, but he really incorporated a lot of these concepts in going into the process. So he really understood his own interests, right? So he believes in the philosophy of, say, you really want to try everything, but if you don't like it, don't pursue it. And if you do like it, just really follow it all the way through to the course. And that's sort of him understanding himself. So in that sense, he put together the best application towards creating in like design, one of the things he's most passionate about. And he didn't really talk about a lot of things that he wasn't that strong in. So that's sort of a bit of employing some of the strategies in presenting himself in the best way he could, but also being able to understand what he was trying to present. So before I offer my own, like exactly what I did, I just like to bring up a caveat. So in my own story, there's going to be almost zero direct applicability to any of you in terms of how you're going to tackle the process, in terms of what you are going to do, because one, I don't even know like exactly why I got it. It could have been luck, it could have made a mistake, just that's good for me. But it's more of what I did now may not necessarily apply to you, it may not necessarily succeed in the future. So I'm okay if you learn from the mistakes that I made, but I don't want anyone here to sort of replicate blindly what I tried to do in high school, because that's sort of, I don't know if it's going to work for you, but I definitely would encourage you to, before taking up any of these activities, to really understand like why you would do these things and whether or not you think it's something that you're really passionate about. So, in essence, my approach was to basically display two characteristics, two character traits throughout my application. So I listed them here, and the first one was potential for growth. So I think that emphasizing a potential for growth is something that's one of the most important things in your college application. Because in the grand scheme of things, right, when you compare a couple applicants, right, all of whom are academically talented, regardless of what awards you have in high school, it's pretty much like small potatoes compared to what you might want to accomplish in the future. So at this point, if you want to evaluate between people, it's more of your feeling out of, from an admission officer standpoint, of your attitude towards learning, like your potential for growth, in terms of how you approach problems, in terms of your how you rebound from failure, how you sort of your attitude, whether or not you have like a love for learning. So in trying to emphasize a potential for growth, I basically listed out a couple of things that I was trying to convey throughout my application, and I'm going to later on show a couple of things that I backed them up with that I did throughout high school. So in a potential for growth, I believe that you want to show a progression through high school. So if you've ever seen the Common App, in that there's going to be 10 activity bubbles, or 10 activity lines, and each of them have bubbles that you bubbles like what grade you did them, what activities you did, whether you did them during the summer, etc. But I think it's really important to have a few of those activities that you continuously have bubbled all the way throughout, from your freshman year through your high school, through your senior year, that you've continuously sort of improved upon year after year. That type of continuity is really strong in establishing that you've really endeavored towards something and you've really progressed in that. So that's a great way to show something like potential for growth, right? Because if you have 10 activities, right, but let's say you've sporadically picked them up, dropped them off in a year, regardless of how great they are, if you have one activity, just one, and you've continuously improved to greater heights every single year, I guarantee you that's a much better way to showcase your potential for growth after you attend any of these institutions that you're looking towards. So another thing that, for me, this is my case study, so I wanted to showcase a desire for engineering and innovation. And this type of sort of intellectual curiosity and technology was my way of sort of thinking about my potential for growth as sort of like an innovator in terms of what I want to contribute, let's say, society going forward, in terms of maybe what I'd want to invent, what I'd want to research in, what I'd want to study. So that type of desire is what I sort of correlated with intellectual curiosity that I sort of tried to convey in my application. So a third thing is just learning from mistakes. That was my humorous essay. Then the next one I showcased, or I tried to, was interdisciplinary skills that you can cross-apply. And what I mean by that is, if you're, let's say, a pure like math major, sometimes it's good to have dabbles in, let's say, like culture, right, and the humanities, in terms of being able to cross-apply things across different fields and sort of put them together. Like, for example, like biology, computer science. Now that's bioinformatics, and that's one of the leading fields that is developing today, right? So these interdisciplinary fields sort of take you above and beyond in terms of understanding like one subject, being like point A, point B, and being able to make that connection in addition to just knowing. Remarkable traits and accomplishments, keyword remarkable. And the last thing, just challenging yourself. You really want to show that. And a great way to do that is strength of schedule in your coursework. So one of the great ways to show that is they don't just look at your GPA, right? They don't look at your number, they're like, all right, 4.0, we're taking it. But they look towards exactly what classes you take, and from the school profile that they receive from your high school, they know what classes that your school offers. So they can immediately tell whether or not you've challenged yourself by like really taking rigorous coursework. So it might not necessarily just have to be at your high school, it can be at nearby community colleges, but as from my experience, showcasing a really difficult strength of schedule is a great way to challenge yourself, or to show that you're challenging yourself. So concretely, my progression throughout high school, 4 activities that I did all the way throughout high school were math competitions, computer science Olympiads, and I was in student government all four years, and I played volleyball all 4 years. And each year I basically either, for example in leadership, I would ascend sort of like a leadership ladder. In like, for example, in competitions, I would sort of advance to the next division or next level as I got older. In volleyball, I got better each season, going from JV to varsity, etc. So that kind of progression across, 4 different endeavors is what I really felt, showed that I had this potential to grow. Right? I took on like 4 different things. I really stuck to them every single year, and from that, I really tried, and I improved in all across all these different fields. So this type of potential for growth is more important than like the actual things that you did themselves. And I'm trying to show that, and I'm being pretty much deliberately vague in all the examples of myself that I'm giving, because I think it's more important that you understand what you're trying to accomplish rather than how I specifically accomplish these things. So the next thing in showcasing my desire for engineering and innovation, I attended a few lectures in the summer of my junior year from this institute near Berkeley, and subsequently I just drafted a really short paper in a math journal. So it was very simple. It was just some game theory applied to common games like rock, paper, scissors, but it was something that, I thought sort of emphasized what I want to learn and what I want to continue to learn in the future. I also attended a field research course in Yosemite, which is basically just code for I slept under a bunch of trees and I hugged a couple of bears, and I backpacked in Yosemite, and it was pretty fun. It was 2 weeks. I also explored I did a brief project there on sort of water quality and flow rates. So, there's a lot of different ways and opportunities for you to sort of showcase how you really, really have an interest in stuff like engineering, innovation, or whatever it is that interests you. If you really look for it, you're going to find it. So, last thing is learn from mistakes. Okay, how many people, who wants to guess what my SAT Due biology score was in freshman year? Just guess. Anyone, just go for it.
750.
Just keep going lower, come on. I'm not going to get offended.
60.
What?
60.
600.
600.
Oh, I thought it was 60. I'm like, that's
Too low.
it's a little bit higher. It's a little higher than that.
700.
620.
A little bit higher than that.
690.
Lower than that.
630.
650.
Yes, 650.
Wow.
Now that is an abysmal score. Let me just tell you that. You do not want to get a 60.
When do you take the test?
Freshman
Right
year.
after freshman.
Yeah, after freshman
So
biology.
you take the AP biology?
No, in freshman year, we're at Lynbrook, we're all required to take freshman biology.
Freshman biology, but what is 600 or 800 score? Which test you're taking?
The SAT 2 subject test.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, that didn't go so well.
Okay.
So the test was at like 7 o'clock. I did my first practice test at 2 o'clock in the morning. That was not a good idea. Don't do that. So you want to learn from your mistakes. And that was a really, really humbling experience because my mom yelled at me for like 3 years. It was just, everyone around me is like, yo, what'd you get? I know you took it. Did you get oh, I'm like, I did bad. They're like, you got a 790. I'm like, no! But yeah, in terms of learning from your mistakes, I sort of view that as you don't want to be afraid of failure. From that on, I've done pretty well on basically all my standardized tests. I've taken them seriously. I'm not, I was sort of just cocky going in, just going yeah, I'm pretty sure I know my stuff, and boom. That's a good wake-up call, especially early. So just learning from that mistake just really sort of solidified my commitment to being more serious about things like these. So as an extension of just learning from my mistakes, I really think it's important just not to be afraid of failure, because just like you, I'm sure you've heard a ton of quotes about how you have to fail and fail and fail and fail and fail and fail and fail, and fail before you succeed. And I think that's really true, right? Because no one just, there's very few people that just go out there and they succeed in their first try. Failure, you learn through failure. You learn through your mistakes, okay? So in possessing interdisciplinary skills, I have like sort of an interesting background. I studied geography when I was in 4th grade because I thought it was cool. And from there, like at one point I could, like even if you give me like one of the main countries in the world right now that is in Oceania, I can probably tell you the capital city. But I also like to travel. I've actually been to like 45 of the 50 continental United States. Communication, I spent a really solid year in speech and debate my freshman year before I moved on to other activities, but that has been priceless. And I've also taken like a difficult literature course like AP Lit and AppLac, which I thought were both interesting, but were unorthodox for someone like me because I have no intention of like really studying like literature moving forward. But just these type of skills and this type of background knowledge sort of allows you to be able to see things in a different light and see connections across different subjects that people just focused within one field may not necessarily be able to see. So, in displaying traits and accomplishments, that's more of the part that I'm sure most of you are pretty well versed in terms of, just that's sort of basically your moment to brag, right? You get a bunch of, like, you get 5 awards, you basically list out how you're the best, and then you move on. But that's one of the things you want to work towards. That's definitely like for example, if your character trait is your claim, right? This would basically be sort of like your evidence. And finally, just challenge yourself, right? I basically took every AP course that I possibly could at Lynbrook that wasn't, that reasonable. Essentially, I didn't take like all the AP languages. I didn't take AP drama. And yeah, but in general, like I also, like went towards community college courses like multivariate calculus, linear algebra, differential equations, all throughout high school as well. So just sort of seeking out, classes, just coursework beyond just high school, because I felt I really needed more of a challenge in my math courses in high school. Just that's a place. There's so many resources around us that we can learn from sort of grades. So that's basically those 6 traits were the main things I tried to use to convey my first characteristic, basically like potential for growth. My secondary characteristic that I want to convey, I think I put it on here, but it was basically sort of being community oriented, or being like team oriented. In terms of, colleges are also looking to build a community, right? They take what, like 1,500, 2,000 freshmen a year, and they put them, basically you house them in this relatively small square space, and it's basically creating like a community of like scholars, athletes, like-minded like intellectuals. They're all in one place, right? So in that sense, they're also looking not just maybe for like the lone shark or the alpha dog all the time. They also want someone who can contribute to like a community, because once you leave college, you're going to be trying to, they want people who can contribute to society, get awards, and then say they went to whatever college they're at, right? So a couple of the ways I tried to show that through activities in, let's say, volleyball, right? That's team sport, right? 6 on 6, you literally cannot win without having, like, it doesn't matter how good your individual people are, you have to be a good team. Leadership, that's a lot of, in terms of school service. I was a class vice president twice. I was the link crew commissioner in my senior year, and I was the associate student body treasurer. So these were all positions that I had, but I sort of held them in doing a, sort of like a service towards Lynbrook, and be it from signing checks to freshman orientations, those were sort of, I think it was more of my way of giving back, because in terms of, it was really isolated from me doing something like math, which my parents really, really wanted me to continue doing and not waste my time on stuff like that. But I felt that that part was, in essence, me sort of showcasing my ability to work with other people and contribute to a community. So another thing that's more minor, that I don't think a lot of people do, is at Lynbrook we have this tradition of homecoming, where, how many of you have heard of Lynbrook's homecoming? Yay! Okay, so every year Lynbrook basically, our homecoming festivities go just beyond the game. It's sort of like a week-long thing where each of the 4 classes will showcase like a big skit with like a backdrop, huge decorations that literally just, it's all across the school. So it's just a school-wide display of sort of like class pride. So for basically all 4 years, or 3 years, sophomore through senior year, I was one of the key directors in my classes, just homecoming festivities, and I wrote the script for our 20-minute play every single week for all 3 of those years. So in that sense, that's sort of, I think, my way of sort of showcasing like my pride for my class. And that's, I think, another important factor in being a member of a community, right? We're proud to be there. I was proud to be part of like a skit or an endeavor that was greater than myself, right? I mean, sure, it's a bunch of kids doing silly things on stage in front of the whole school for 20 minutes, but it's something that we all worked towards and bonded towards and sort of brought us more closely knit as a community. So, I mean, it sounds kind of silly for, I guess, maybe a couple of you, but I mean, every time I had like an interview for any of my colleges, they would look up our resume. They expected me to talk about like, oh, math, I love math, oh, you love computers, oh, you're Asian, your parents are engineers. No, I also like basically, they would like, their eyes would light up when I just talked about my passion for like developing my own characters and just like reading other skits and just like drawing for those and sort of creating plots. And they could, my passion for like that kind of thing was sort of evident, and it was distinctive in what my Lynbrook community sort of meant to me. In terms of like, I know a couple of one of you might have had a question beforehand about like volunteer service, or community service. That for me was the most part of my, I guess, small community service. I also dabbled a little bit. I volunteered at a farm in junior year and a little bit of senior year, and that sounds really exciting, right? So at the beginning, they were mean and they just made me pick weeds. But then later on, as the seasons changed, they let me go into the greenhouse and they sort of taught me a little bit about sustainable farming. So that was a great experience for me, and sort of also just volunteering towards like a local farm. So another caveat, just sort of on an off-related remark, in community service, it doesn't have to be like some grand project. So in my junior year, I had this idea where I would sort of like get like books and I would donate them to some faraway country like Cambodia. We just picked it up from that, right? So I had one of my advisors in high school was this woman named Mrs. Howden, and she just basically heard my idea, laughed at me, and told me it was stupid, right? Because she was basically like, community service isn't necessarily, you don't have to go to some far-fetched place and do something grand that you may think just sounds sort of good. Like, there's so many opportunities for you to volunteer. They're just there's so many opportunities just right around you. And it doesn't matter whether it's local, whether it's like far away, whether it's national. I mean, you're volunteering, so you don't have to make a grand effort just to reach out to a faraway place that you're only really sort of pretending to care about. Okay, so, I mean, I think that sort of covers a lot of what I wanted to say about college admissions. As you can see, I'm kind of cynical of the whole process. And if you have any more questions, I'm going to be very happy to answer them towards the end. Just any questions that you may have, and I'll answer all of them. So, I'm going to sort of transition a little bit into competitive mathematics. So, how many of you have heard of what the AMCs are? You guys have come to the right place. Okay. So I think that it comes down to sort of a three-step process, and or you want to have three things. I've sort of ordered them actually in order of increasing importance. So first of all, you have to be willing to work. In essence, you have to work hard, right? And I mean, that's something that's instilled in us. We're like basically programmed to do that. We work hard, right? And I mean, it sounds simple, but sometimes like a lot of people do slack off. They sort of fall off the wagon. That's unfortunate, right? So working hard is a must, obviously. You're ingrained to sort of work hard. But what I sort of realized that I think it was my sophomore year when I was having a conversation with my APCS teacher, Mr. Peck, he basically told me essentially like, working hard isn't what distinguishes you from everyone else, because everyone else, especially in like your competitive talent pool, is working hard. Everyone's working hard. Everyone's putting in their hours towards whatever they want, right? They're all willing to grind through that to make it to the next level, right? And that's why they're applying to all these schools. So it's not that, you know, people haven't put in the effort. Everyone is working hard, right? And that's the first step. That's like, if you don't have that, you're not going to succeed, right? But that's the first step, but there's a lot more to just doing that than just working hard, right? Like I've had conversations with my mother about this. She's like, work hard. I'm like, all right. But I think of that as more of like, rather than just something like, in terms of like a magnitude where you just, if you work hard enough, you're going to get wherever you want. I think it's more of like a vector, right? So you have a magnitude, but you also have a direction, right? You have to be able to be willing to put in all that effort, but you want to be able to direct that towards whatever your second thing is, and that's a genuine passion, right? So, I mean, I had a lot of friends in middle school at Miller who were really, really into math. Like, we were all this tight-knit group. We like carpooled to math circles, and they yelled at us because we were too loud, right? But, I mean, by my senior year, there were only like 3 people left who were still really engaged in competitive mathematics. Like, that's kind of sad, but I mean, that's a bit of what the genuine passion like means, right? At the start, everyone was willing to work, right? But at some point, a lot of them who like dropped off in math, they're all like really happy where they are. They're all really successful, intelligent people, but they just realized that that wasn't like what their true passion is. And if working hard is the first thing, you have to not just be willing to work, you really have to like want to work, right? And that's the only way to really do that is if you truly have a genuine passion towards whatever subject that you're going towards. Because I pretty much guarantee you, regardless of what accolades or incentives that you could possibly get from a goal, like there's nothing that beats how hard you can strive and like motivating you than your own genuine like love for whatever subject that you're going towards. And the last thing is, you're willing to work and you really want to work, the last thing you need to do is seek out the best resources in competitive mathematics, right? Because if you don't, you're essentially like going it alone, right? And there's so many resources out there that I can just list off the top of my head that not making use of this is just a really foolish endeavor, right? And I think, I mean, going solo was pretty cool like 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece, but nowadays, I mean, after all that groundwork has been laid for you, you really want to take full advantage of the resources from like art of problem solving. There's a ton of like camps and math camps all around there. There's a lot of books, you know, online databases of old problems. And finally, you also want to seek out like usually a mentor. I had a mentor. His name was Timothy Chu. He's going to MIT. So in freshman year, I really sought him out. And he taught me a lot of what I know about Olympiad mathematics today. And our like sessions weren't more oriented towards like learning a bunch of new material, right? Because you can learn new material in a lot of different ways. But he was really orienting me to think a certain way, and he was orienting me towards, you know, just thinking about certain problems in certain ways. So he wouldn't just, all right, we're doing number. He didn't just give me a book. Go like, all right, we're doing chapter 1 today. It was more of, you know, mentors there to really direct you, and having this combination of resources is what can really take you to the next level. So having, you know, if you're willing to work, you want to work, and you have the best resources, that's probably your best bet to reaching your full potential. Right? And, you know, there's always going to be a lot of people. I feel like in middle school, you know, the words are kind of flashy. You know, when you acquire a bunch of trophies, medals, maybe, I don't know. I don't think girls would talk to you, but like, people talk to you and they're like, oh, you're so great, but really towards, I've seen a lot of my friends sort of burn out as they progress through high school because they're, at some point they just realize that they don't have that passion anymore. But that's perfectly okay, but at that point you have to realize maybe might want to look for something else. Okay, so that's some general advice. I'm going towards a little end of my so-called lecture or something. So first thing I want to really emphasize is count on yourself. Right? So I'm sure when you go towards the college admissions process, you're going to look towards like a lot of people, right? Like maybe like friends, services, like counselors, whatever. I really think that, I mean, the most important person, your biggest fan should always be you, right? Like there's no one who's going to give you 100% of what you can like believe in yourself, or you can put your own interests into yourself, right? Even like the best, like say a hedge fund manager, they're all going in there prepared that some of their investments are going to fail, right? But for you yourself, you should have 0% like desire, you should have 100% belief in yourself that you're going to succeed. So your biggest fan should be yourself, and you should count on yourself at every moment throughout this. Like you need to be your biggest supporter throughout the whole process, and don't lean on anyone else too heavily towards doing something like that. You have to do this, and it's on you. And the second thing really is to just weave together your most compelling narrative, because that's what college applications at its most basic scale is about. I mean, if you think about it, you have all the materials that you need in terms of your activities, your grades, you know, whatever character traits you have. But now it's just sort of about like packaging, gift wrapping it in the best way possible and presenting it. So it's unfortunate if, I mean, you've come all this way, you've labored so hard, and sort of fall short there in the end, and you sort of come out with a flat essay, you know, unimaginative, like interview, whatever. But you really want to just, this is a time for you not only to try to compile more awards, because that, I guarantee you, isn't going to nearly have as big of an impact as giving a compelling narrative that will, you know, make that connection with that admissions officer, or allow them to just, you know, take a second glance at your application, right? So that's some general advice. And the last quote I'll leave you with, I didn't have anything from like a famous philosopher or like something clever from someone. I just watched a TV show like last week. I really like this quote. My dear man, if I have to do work, then I'm not doing my job. So in essence, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do work, but if you're really striving towards something, it's not going to feel like work, and it's going to feel more like fun. So I'll just open up to questions right now. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
Did you hire a counselor?
Maybe. I will say this. You can hire whatever counselor you want, but at the end, you really do have to depend on yourself, because a lot of people, you know, they'll give you advice, but it's really, you can't, like, there's no magic counselor that's going to fix all your problems. They might direct you in the right way. There might be a mentor that just charges a ridiculous amount of money, but a lot of that, you can't blindly follow their advice. You really have to go and understand, like, why what they're telling you is true, and in some cases, like, I disagreed with my whoever was advising me sometimes. Any other questions?
Do you think they are helpful, or do you think you can get the same result without the counselor?
I mean, it's really hard to say, but I think a lot of the things that I was trying to convey in my college application were already ingrained in there. Like, I had the raw materials, right? But in terms of maybe, if I were to have to make some sort of recommendation, I would really have someone just help you have a second opinion on your essays. It could be someone from like a high school teacher or, you know, essay editors, but that's basically the core of what you really need to do. That's just presentation. Beyond that, they're not really, I mean, them telling you to, you know, go towards one extracurricular, or like, if they have really, really specific advice on something, chances are, I mean, that's not a foolproof way to do things. And it's more of, you should follow like what you want to do, and not necessarily go towards exactly what someone else's emulation or model that they have for you should be. Yeah.
Why did you pick Princeton over other schools that you must have looked at? And how do you approach this whole college selection?
So, I mean, I chose Princeton because, or I applied early because, I mean, for me, it's not just about, I mean, obviously Princeton has a brand name, but, I mean, okay, I'll pitch my school. One of the best things about Princeton is that in terms of at every one of these big institutions, you know, there's going to be undergraduates and there's going to be graduates, right? And you guys all know the difference between that, right? Just okay, so undergraduates, you have your first four years normally. You get like a bachelor's degree usually. Graduate school, you go beyond that, you study more, you might get a master's, a PhD, etc. There's a difference. So at these institutions, there's always going to be like undergraduates and graduates. And of course, since, I mean, one's undergraduates, which are like under the graduates, a lot of schools really prioritize towards the resources and professors towards like graduates. There's a school near here, near Palo Alto, that like if you're like an undergraduate and you're like there's a hotshot professor, chances are they're not going to talk to you. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But at Princeton, we have like 5,000 undergraduates, and we only have 2,000 graduates. And every single one of the professors is required to teach undergraduates. So I thought that interaction with professors was something I really felt like they gave a hoot about like me as an undergraduate. So that's one of the things that really pushed my decision. Yeah.
What motivated you so interested in mathematics, especially in the middle school year?
In middle school?
Yeah, because you already participated in math competitions in middle school.
Oh, I think at the beginning, a lot of it was my mother just going like, I mean, cause like, from first grade to fifth grade, my mom really wanted me to do Chinese. And I was like, I hate Chinese. She's like, oh, well, it's okay, you can quit Chinese. I'm like, yes, just like, you can start math. I'm like, oh. So, I think at the beginning it was more of, I mean, it's good to have that parental push. And I really thank her for understanding, having my long-term interests in mind there. But beyond, as I got better, I really started to develop my own like passion for that. Like I started to, I mean, if you get good at something, generally you enjoy doing it. But you have to put in that, you know, work. Like you really have to put in that work at the beginning. Like I stopped playing like Maple Story just to do that. You guys know that. Yeah.
What's your major?
I'm going to be majoring in operations research and financial engineering, and it's going to combine. Yeah. It's going to combine like a little bit of mathematics, economics, and computer science. And I really like those.
So question, I think you mentioned when you apply Princeton, you choose applied mathematics, and then you change the option. So why do that? Is that a strategy, or is that a strategy you played during the school application?
I definitely didn't plan. I barely even knew about this program.
Okay.
When I actually, when I applied, right? I mean, commonly you don't really hear about this kind of stuff. But after I went there during the preview weekend, I met a couple of people in this major who really convinced me that this was something I wanted to do. I mean, there's going to be strategies, like things you can apply under, like, I mean, you can apply under like cultural dance and then switch to like economics. So like once you get it, like, I know people, not friends, I know people who do that. But I mean, that's basically, if you're true to yourself in that sense. Like if you really like cultural dance, go for that. But if it's more of like, you don't really care about like Arabic culture and you apply in there and you switch over, I mean, they're still gonna let you do that, but like 9 times out of 10, they can see through this, right? They're like intelligent people, and you really have to believe in that story. And it's difficult. I mean, some people have done it, but I just don't suggest going down that route. Yeah.
What was your SAT score?
I got 2380.
So I think your SAT reading and writing is 800, right? So which you didn't kind of mistake on the math? Is that
It was an easy algebra question. It was an easy algebra. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to take AP Bio. They never let me. I was trying to do that in my sophomore year, but they didn't let me. So I don't know if they'll do that in the future, but they have really stringent requirements. I mean, if you go to like more like private schools like Harker, Bellarmine, they're definitely gonna let you do that. It comes at a cost.
AP what? Which class?
I did not take AP Biology because Lynbrook doesn't let you double up the sciences. I take chemistry honors and stuff.
Is there anyone that really inspired you to like work harder, or did you like meet a person or hear about?
I mean, that would make for a really good story in an essay, but I think mostly, just my parents, because no, I'm serious. I mean, what they had growing up compared to the comfortable amenities that I had growing up is just such a big disparity, and it just, it's something that I carry with me every day. Like, my dad came from this small town of Shaosan, and it's now in Hangzhou, but he had 6 brothers, and like when they had an egg, they would like split it 8 ways for dinner. And like, I can eat like 3 eggs a day, like if I really wanted to. So just that kind of how they had to go through all that, just struggle for an education, just get here, and the resources that I have compared to what they had before. I mean, not going to the best of my abilities to make good on the foundation that they laid for me, that's just a shame.
So your parents tell you their stories every day? We encourage you to study hard. I should do that to my kids as well.
Yeah.
And continue to that story, and you tell that your parents pushed you so much at the beginning. But when you look back now, is that helpful, you think, to learn math to reach to a certain level? Or you think it's something else you will do it, never do it again for your children?
I feel like this is a really tricky answer for whoever. I feel like I have a lot of power in this situation. I would say that it depends on the person and their interest in the subject. Because I had always been good at math in elementary school. So at the beginning, it was like my mom, if I wanted to eat a mango, my mom, she'd like, you have to finish this before you can have the mango. I was like, I'm almost done. And she's like, no, you can't have the mango. I was like, but it was like, I mean, I think that push at the beginning, like having that push is really important. I mean, sometimes, if it's not something they want to do, after usually maybe like a 1 year, 2 year mark, it becomes pretty evident. Otherwise, if they start, taking that up on their own. Because I started in like 6th grade, and by the summer of my 7th grade, I was doing it on my own. Like I found my books on my own, and I worked through the books by myself. At that sense, my parents sort of took their hands off the gas pedal. Yeah, but they still, but it was, they sort of gave me a little more rein. So, that's something that applies, differently from like child to child. Like my parents did try to force me to play piano, and like they sent me to classes in China because it's cheaper there. But then it's just like 1 month in, like piano teacher's like, you're like one of the worst students I've ever had. It's like, all right, but yeah.
So you quit piano at what age?
I don't know. I was just more interested in playing Pokemon. I just know that. I'm serious. Yeah.
You have siblings or?
No, I'm an only child.
What other Ivy school did you apply and did you got in? And can you share what?
I applied. I withdrew all my applications because I got in early, right? So I withdrew all my applications to all schools except Harvard, Stanford, and MIT, and I got waitlisted all.
So you got 3?
What? I got waitlisted. So
okay.
That's like 1,000 people get in, next 1,000 people get waitlisted, and then 30,000 people get rejected, and then a few months later, the 1,000 people get rejected too. So it's just it sucks. Yeah.
Did you attend any of the prestigious summer research programs like RSI or SIMR?
Nope,
No?
I didn't apply.
Okay.
Or I applied to RSI my junior, but that's really a long shot. It's tough to see what that program is like 15 times more selective than Harvard. So a lot of them, just being realistic. It wasn't a big bummer. Yeah. Breakdown of my summer activities. 8th grade summer, went to math camp. Got that. 9th grade summer, I did some math. I did not study biology. I picked up a little bit of computer science. Sophomore year was when I got really involved in homecoming, and I added homecoming on as one of my activities. Over summer, I would help with decorations. You would design like these big things that you build structures, build scripts. I mean, it was like a one-time-a-week thing on like a basis of activities I built up. I mean, math was big my sophomore year summer. Junior year summer, I got an internship, and it was doing metrology and analyzing images. And I just coded for them, and I went on that field research course. And senior year summer right now, I'm just sort of taking it a little easier.
Yeah. Another question. You said that your SAT score for the biology is not low. Did you mention it in your essay? Did you mention it in your essay to introduce yourself? When you introduced yourself, did you mention that essay?
I didn't mention that in my essays, but I talked about it in all of my interviews. So like the alumni's interviews, I would express that. I was like, yeah, I'm really screwed up here. Yeah.
Since you finished high school now, if you go like 4 years ago, if you have a chance to do that again, how can you do differently?
That's a really good question.
Especially if you get what you think can do differently, how can that help the people, especially the child here?
I mean, an easy answer is I would do more computer science.
Why?
It's really useful. I mean, how many jobs out there going forward are going to require like computer science or some knowledge, basic rudimentary knowledge? I think it's better to know a lot more going in than having to, sort of waste some of your beginning courses learning things like intro to jobs in college. But
that would not help your. Would that help your application? Would that be?
I think. Oh, okay. Sort of see the questions. Let's just say that in being devoted to Olympiads, the math Olympiad is by far the hardest one to get anywhere. It's really difficult. And the computer science one is really new and significantly easy. Let's just put it that way. No knock. I have a lot of really good friends who are really passionate in the computer science Olympiad, but that's just how they stack up. Yeah.
If you had to rank the Olympiads in terms of hardest to easiest, like what would be your ranking? Like
hardest to easiest. Physics. Math, physics. Probably biology, then chemistry, then computer science.
So computer science is the easiest.
By far. Yeah.
So how did you manage to juggle everything, like for time management, all of your APs and volleyball and everything?
A lot of the times is, if you ever look on Tumblr, you might see like those Venn diagrams. It's like success, like sleep, and like friends and stuff. Yeah. I basically did not sleep very much in high school, and you can definitely see, but yeah, I didn't sleep much. Which that's one of the things I do. You probably sleep a lot more. You're more energized in the day. You start off better. But I think what got me through just having a lot of activities was I had a good support network just going junior year, like between my parents, good communication. I found a lot of similar friends. Like I found one friend, his name was Eric. He also was passionate about geography. We just sometimes we just have conversations in our free time, discuss like places we want to travel. It's just like these small things that take your mind off like the day. My parents like really wanted me to like quit things like volleyball and leadership going forward. But for me, I found those were like ways to get my mind off of things instead of always being poring over like a problem set or like homework. You get your time to interact with people, or in volleyball you're just like you're not thinking, you're just acting. Just having that balance of activities, just without that balance, I really don't think I would do it.
So during the 4 years, which year do you feel the most struggle, and why that made you so struggle during that year?
pretty much for everyone, I would have to say that junior is probably the most stressful. I mean, if you count the summer too, because you're constantly worried about apps. It took APIsh. It was a lot of work. In general, I feel like that starting junior, I started having to get serious, right? I like took math back up. I was like, all right, I really need to pull everything together. This is pretty much the year that counts, right? Because by senior year, I mean, if you're trying to fix things, for most people that doesn't really go that well. So that was probably my most challenging.
Then we can do, for example, such a class if you go back. Then any way you can do differently. So in the junior year, you will not feel so stressful.
I probably would have quit I probably would have quit Lynbrook. I probably wouldn't, that was one of the things that took a lot of time. I probably wouldn't have been the head of the prom committee too. That's one thing that, I mean, it was a good experience, event planning, like learning about like color schemes and like how the balloons but yeah, there's a couple things I dropped, definitely, because I was sleeping really late every day, 2 or 3 every day for like a month, in the month of March. Yeah, I mean, cutting off on some activities, I mean, I feel like that's difficult, just letting go of some things that you've already put time into. But that's something, some of the mistakes that I think, I'm definitely going to learn from in the future. Yeah.
What is the GPA? Unweighted.
Unweighted. 3.94 or something like that. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
How did you get your internships?
My internships?
How did you apply? How did you know what to apply?
I mean, a couple of my friends, they had like, for example, Lockheed comes to Lynbrook. I personally didn't really like working that much into like, that much of a schedule because I wanted to pursue other activities. So I worked at the same place that my dad was working. So he talked to like his president boss. He was just like, no, he can do a lot of coding. You can pay him like literally like $5 an hour under the books. And I was just like, I took it. It was a good experience. It was sort of a small company. There were like 40 people. I found a lot of good mentors there. So yeah, I didn't have my hours were really flexible because that way I could go in at like 11 some days, just leave at 2 if I had to.
Did it help you to put on an application if people did at the admission office care? You did an internship.
I mean, that's really hard to say because I really feel like, I mean, it's so subjective that it's like as you're looking through. I mean, okay, one of the things that I have, like one of my pet peeves is if you go to like talks in like colleges, they give you like comparisons between like student A and student B. That's just so unrealistic, right? They don't have time to compare two people. They like compare like 50, 100 at a time, right? And to really like be able to stand out, I really think the thing that makes the difference is if you have a story that catches them, if you be able to really convey those character traits. Because I mean, even regardless how many even if you want a ton of gold medals, the difference in terms of how far you can go and how far you are now from where you could possibly go is so big that I mean, it's really just down to a couple things like your character, your attitude towards learning, potential for growth, things like that. So I definitely don't think I could. I mean, I guess it might have helped, but I really have no information whatsoever as to whether or not, like a definitive answer as to how much that helped or whether it helped at all. But
at least you put that on your application.
Yeah, it was.
When did you get that internship? It's a summer of after junior year, or it's a...
Yeah, summer after junior year. Yeah.
Did you take a bunch of extracurricular classes, places like here?
I took multivariable calculus and linear algebra at West Valley my junior year, and I'm currently taking differential functions.
Like SAT or SAT?
No, I never took enough SAT prep. Oh, I did take a short one from short thing from Flex for the general test. But it's just I don't really think that. I think that if you have like, I would actually suggest for all the subject tests that I've taken, I've always just bought a Princeton book, brought a Barron's book, and I just choose it. Yeah.
Oh, you said before, I didn't hear it clearly. So different Olympiads according to the easiest to the hardest one.
I mean, okay. Like my word definitely isn't law on this. This is like very opinionated. There's a lot of probably a lot of people who will get mad at me if doing that. But I would definitely say that a good marker for how difficult they are is their starting date. Okay. IMO was started in 1959. USACA was probably started in late 1990s or 2000s. Right? That the longer it goes, the more prestigious it gets, the more people participate in it. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so USACA, then biology, chemistry.
I would say I think
Math, physics.
computer science is the easiest. I think. Then it's chemistry. Then it's biology. Then it's physics. Then it's the math.
When did you start preparing for your computer Olympiad?
I took the contest starting sophomore year, and then I got into gold in April of junior year. So that was a pretty fast speed.
1 year.
Yep. And it took me a long time to do it.
Which of the classes were your biggest time sinks?
AP Lit, for sure. That was
AP
at
Literature.
Lynbrook. If you take AP Lit and you get this woman, okay. Talk to me after the class about that kind of stuff. But AP Lit for sure.
The literature?
AP Literature, class in senior year, you have questions. They're called questions, and you're supposed to answer with essays. So it's just that's not fun. And A Push after that. Those two were the main.
So what is AP?
Oh, AP United States History. Sorry, I'm used to giving out terminology. Just if you have any clarifications you need me to make, just ask.
What resources? You mentioned that for all the Olympics there are tons of resources. What are some if you have time to share, or where can I find?
Okay, so my specialty is in mostly math, and after that computer science. For math, artofproblemsolving.com. That's the most famous, the most standard one out there. There's books like Problem Solving Strategies by Arthur Engel, Art and Craft of Problem Solving by Paul Zeitz, Kiselev's Geometry, Complex Numbers from A to Z by Doran and Truca. There's a huge list of these books, and you can just go through them. Generally, if you want to make it to higher levels, you also need to learn the art of proof writing, writing good proofs, not just you can get the solutions in your head, right? But if they don't like the way you write it, they give you a big fat zero. So from there, there's a ton of math camps. If you want to learn number theory, there's Promes and Ross. If you general things, or there's math camp. There's awesome math. There's and if the big one, if that you have to qualify to, is MOP. And online problem solving also offers online courses. They have a Wikipedia database of basically all the AMC problems, a bunch of math problems from old contests, Stanford math tournament, even from Russian math problems, everything they have in this huge database. So for computer science, it's called the USACO. They have their own training pages. That's a good start. Beyond that, a lot of it's sort of doing, that introduces you to some common algorithms, so just doing more problems. Beyond that, there's small things like code forces and what's it called? Something else, I can't think of it off the top of my head. Or you can search up university problem sets. I did a couple Carnegie Mellon problem sets just to train. It's all available online, so power of the internet. Any other questions? Yeah.
What events did you do in speech and debate, and why did you quit forensics?
Oh, I started out, or I did public forum the whole time, which is not very legit, if any of you are just wondering.
No, it is.
Oh, okay. Right.
There's nationals for it.
Okay. Talk to you about that later. I really, okay, so I did decently well. I broke at a few tournaments, but it was more of, I think, just learning about like being able to better present your arguments, being able to communicate things, being able to sort of research a lot of ideas, and sort of that really helped me with, for example, getting through like essay classes, just like a format of, you know, looking for what I wanted to say, present like exactly what evidence I had towards doing that. That helped. But beyond that, I just felt like too much of it was subjective up to like judges. Like I remember, alright, this is a sob story, but at Stanford it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I was hungry, and we were winning the round. It was my prep time, and I ate chocolate, and all our arguments were better than the other team. And the guy was like, "You ate chocolate." I was like, "That was my prep time," and he wrote me down. So that was a big decision behind not doing debate, because I just felt like, I mean, a lot of I think it's a good experience, just in terms of being able to better articulate yourself. But I mean, beyond that, I felt like I wanted to pursue it.
Did you do varsity or JV for debate?
Varsity. Yeah.
Did you attend Science Olympiad? Like a lot of schools have a team. Soali.
Oh, Science Olympiad? Yeah, I did rocks and minerals for them, and water quality. And I just like, my friends were like president of Science Club. They're just like, do a couple events and I'll feed you. I was like, okay. But I mean, it's a good, they have some good events. It's a fun experience. It's good for learning. So.
What kind of club did you attend in the high school?
I started out just speech and debate math club. The only one that I kept throughout was just math club. Because, I mean, being involved in like ASB and like student government sort of takes away some of your time from other clubs. So I felt, you know, I had enough on my plate, so I didn't really join a ton of other clubs.
What's the ASB you're talking about? Student. Before the student government, you mentioned there's some abbreviated word, ASB.
That's Associated Student Body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'm the treasurer.
Oh,
Yeah, like, that doesn't mean I get to count the physical money. They don't let me do that. I like look through all the accounts and like I like write the checks. And,
what about student government?
My position was vice president for 2 years. Vice president has no formal duties, but you sort of take it upon yourself like to, you know, work on whatever was needed. Like I would help out at rallies. I would, you know, homecoming was big for me. I helped. I was the head of. I took on prom committee, the head of prom committee, my junior year. And
for math club, did you say you were what kind of position?
no, I just attended, and I just like helped them with whatever. Sometimes I helped grade. Sometimes I like presented some problems. Sometimes I would just help out with a lot of competitions that, you know, they needed. It's by volume. Sometimes you get awards if you have like 30 people who get a good score on this really easy contest.
You mentioned you don't sleep that much, but typically, how do you spend your time on typical school days between homework, study, Facebook, extracurricular activities, whatnot?
Okay. So school starts at 7:35. Usually I get there at 7:37. So you just get through the day. Sometimes I just get a quick bite to eat during lunch. Sometimes that extra time I'll just go out, get lunch with some friends. After that, usually when I get home, I try to make a pretty good use of the afternoon block between like after like lunch and before dinner-ish. After dinner usually is when I'll like go online, or like really maybe if I need to talk to some people regarding some stuff, maybe if I want to like just gossip, not just chatter and, you know, have fun with, or just talk to some people. And then after that, you know, I close that off a bit, and then if there's any work left to do, just process through that and then go to sleep.
So the afternoon time is the homework and school study.
Yeah,
time.
I noticed a trend along a lot of my peers they would actually take a nap during that period, and I don't suggest that, just because I mean it messes up your sleep schedule.
Don't you have volleyball practice in the afternoon?
Only during like the seasons, like during season I do. So then I'd have to do a little bit before. I practice from like 5 to 7 sometimes. So I do it before, like between like let's say like 12 and 5 or like 2 and 5, depending on the day. But that's just during the spring season.
How much time is volleyball team?
It's just a 2-hour practice every day. In varsity, then you have tournaments, like 3 tournaments, and that takes like a day. Yeah, like 3 tournaments during season takes like a day each. Yeah.
But if it's not the season, you will need to practice it too, right?
I was never like, volleyball for me was, I mean, how athletic do you think I am? I tried out for a club volleyball team. I made it my sophomore year, but I ultimately decided, well, one, that was just after I got the results of SAT files. So my parents were like, no. So, yeah, so I decided to just work more towards like academic pursuits because I felt, I mean, volleyball for me was just there to strike a balance. I mean, you know, just being able to clear your mind of things, you know, break a sweat, take a good shower afterwards. That sort of cleared my mind and left me more focused and like open to just talking on the rest of the day.
So how many AP class do you take for each school year?
Sophomore year I took 2, junior I took 4, senior I took 4.
Okay, so total take 10.
Which two you took in sophomore?
Calculus and computer science.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have like a prep period during junior year?
A prep period?
Yeah. Like, I don't go to Lynbrook,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So like I go to Pally, so we can take a maximum of 7 classes, but most people decide to take 1 period off.
Oh yeah.
Because there's too much stuff to do.
Yeah.
So like, did you do that?
What we get is this thing called tutorial. So every Monday and Thursday we get a 35-minute scheduled block where we can basically mill around, talk to teachers. It's basically our downtime. So that's scheduled for us. We don't really get like a prep period because Lynbrook mostly tries to make our courses like continuous. So after we get off, we don't.
So you can take the AP class in freshman? Oh, there's no offering at freshman?
They didn't offer. I mean, now if you test into it, you can still take calculus in freshman, but beyond that, Lynbrook you can't take conceivably. I've heard of being able to take other pupils.
How many hours did you sleep? 4 hours, 10 hours?
I mean, it depends on the year, because freshman year, you know, I had a lot more time. I could sleep like 8 hours a day. I'd wake up, it'd be nice. Sophomore year was like 7, junior was like 4. Senior year was like beginning. Alright, I believe in something called sleep cycles. So I believe like sleep is kind of sinusoidal in terms of like how the sleep goes. So I believe in sleeping in 85 to 90-minute intervals. And I believe the most critical time you have to sleep is 11 to 2. So if I had too much AP Lit, I would sleep from 11 to 2 and I'd wake up after this.
So you wake up early.
Might work for you. It was suggested to me by a Berkeley Eats major, so probably has some validity in it. Yeah.
What do you think distinguishes you from all the other Asians who also made use of code and did all this other stuff? Like, what makes you special?
Oh, that's what I think distinguished me, because I didn't think a lot of USMO and USECO people dabbled in things like student government or bothered to like play a sport or like decided to go to a farm or like decided to like produce a skit. I mean, I think that in my choices, that was probably some of the biggest conflicts I had with, you know, clashing with my parents. But I felt that type of individualism, because I really believe in having that balance between activities, and I didn't want to follow too rigidly into one. That it might have held me back a little bit. I mean, probably did hold me back from just reaching my ultimate goal. But I mean, I'm still happy with how things turned out.
Which farm did you go to?
It's called Full Circle Farm. It's in Saratoga. It's actually really close by.
How did you find out?
I had a couple of friends who had friends who went there. And I was just like, well, it seems like a good experience. Because I'd just come back from Yosemite and I was missing trees. And I was like,
So you did it in summer, or when did you participate in a farm? Is it during school year or during the summer?
during the summer and a little bit during the school year. It's seasonal, so I try to drop in when it's more exciting. Because like if you go during like between like April-ish, there's not that much to do besides or you don't really go there during winter. I think.
So what did you learn
Beginning they made me read, which wasn't fun. But then later on they like took me into the greenhouse and then they showed me like what they're cultivating, like just how things work there, how the operations went. I got to like look at like there were like 2 animals and that was just.
So you put this into your essay?
What?
You put this in your application?
No, because you don't have that many essays for each school. So, I mean, there's a limited amount of things you can talk about. For example, like, I only dedicated 1 essay to mathematics, even though, like, it's a big part of what I did. But I felt like that essay was, like, enough to convey what I had.
But if you didn't put how did they know you make some distinction?
I mean, because I think that's more of, it mattered more to me personally than I think it mattered to like, a college admissions officer, because they're like, yeah, he gets too far, good star. I mean, I think I probably mentioned it in a few interviews, because that was one of the places where I just was free to like talk. I didn't have to, I mean, because I tried to make my essays more like, focused.
What do you talk in your essay? What can you say? What was the essay? Yeah.
One of my essays was about math. Pretty obvious. I didn't mention basically any of my like boards. I didn't mention AMCs. I just sort of approached it in the way that how I felt about like mathematics. So I sort of compared myself to, or I sort of compared what I aspired to do with math with like what the ancient Greek philosophers tried to do. Like, you know, like for example, like Democritus, Archimedes, Eratosthenes, etc. And how they used math towards a lot of interdisciplinary like endeavors. So that's how I sort of listed them. I wrote like an essay, a little bit for each person, and I was just like, that's sort of how I like model my like own perspectives about how I think math is a good tool for me to pursue whatever I want in the future. Yeah.
So how many colleges did you apply? And do you mind to share?
4.
Just 4 altogether?
Yeah, I withdrew all my applications for other schools. Yeah.
You mentioned that there are some of your classmates did math with you in middle school, but then most of them dropped out of the math, maybe because, like you said, math is the hardest Olympiad, so they go to the other direction, and they probably achieved much better if they stayed on the math, right? Did they?
Like I have a couple friends who went to chemistry Olympiad, went to physics Olympiad, and they just like the subject more. So I think it's not more of like, oh, this Olympiad's easier, so I'm gonna try that one. I think they really enjoyed, like, after being exposed to like physics or chemistry, whatever it was, they really found that they enjoyed that more than just like, because some people don't like how math doesn't have, I mean, you sort of have to force the applications a bit, and they thought that was a bit too pure for them, so they looked towards like other Olympiads, and they were successful in, I mean, they probably could have, if they continued math, they probably could have done really well, but that was just more of them following their own passions, and they decided to switch over. I took chemistry honors and AP chemistry in sophomore and senior year, and I took AP physics in Lynbrook only offers mechanics, it's a full year, and I took that in junior year.
Oh, so where did you start the honor? When did you study the honor of physics?
I didn't.
You just jumped?
Yeah. I mean, they just let me. They just let me apply in, and I just like read the physics honors textbook because they posted it. Just read through it, and it's like, okay.
Do you have to pass a placement test or just?
They just let me go because my chemistry teacher recommended me for it.
Oh, I see. So maybe other people may get in trouble. They want to get the PPs.
It depends on like how open the administration is feeling about that. Because these kind of policies are tricky. Because like in the past, you had things like, oh, we're gonna let some people take double sciences, and then huge controversy. Every Asian wants to take double science, and they're like, no, so we close that down. I'm not sure if juniors are still allowed to take AP physics. It was, I was one of like 2 juniors in a class of like 30 seniors.
something like you didn't put every single thing you did in the application. For example, sometimes you didn't put the farm experience.
Yeah.
So how did you, which ones did you put, or which ones did you choose to neglect?
It's kind of, I don't have my application on me right now exactly, but it was more of, like how I decided was, I just presented exactly what I was trying to showcase potential for growth and my ability to like function, contribute in the community. So just from those two, I oriented like what activities would best show that. Right? It wasn't really about like, oh, maybe I did that, but I mean, it was more of what I was trying to show than what exactly I did. So I just like compiled what I had that could sort of present that characteristic, and from there I just tried to weave in whatever I could. I mean, you only get like, you get a big Common App essay, you get a baby essay, you might get some supplements, but beyond that, I mean, you're not looking at a lot of space for you to write everything that you want.
So there are 10 slots, right? 10 slots.
Oh, 10 slots? Yeah, I mean, that's a little, that's more, I basically also...
You had more than that, so you don't have to, so you have to cut down something.
Essentially, yeah.
You mentioned you mentioned that you have Princeton, but what's the design of you what's your major in art?
I applied under mathematics.
The major was mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
How many majors did you choose?
It depends on the